If we're getting more rainfall lately, does that mean the drought's over? And what about snowfall? Is that going to help? If you've got questions about Vermont's historic drought and our increasingly weird weather, today's the show for you. Hello, Vermont. Before I met today's guest, I thought I had a pretty decent understanding of drought conditions. After all, I'm from San Diego, one of the driest cities in the country, but it turns out drought is more complicated than mere rainfall. And that's something Lesley-Ann Dupigny-Giroux would like all Vermonters to better understand. She has served as Vermont's state climatologist since 1997, was co-chair of Vermont's State Drought Task Force, and in 2020 was appointed to the Vermont Climate Council. Dr. Dupigny-Giroux has also contributed to all 5 national climate assessments, is a fellow of the American Meteorological Society, and at UVM is a distinguished professor of geography and geosciences. Obviously, she is incredibly well qualified and the absolute best person I could have this conversation with this morning. Dr. Dupigny-Giroux, thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Amy. It is such a pleasure to be back on Across the Fence.
Across the Fence, and I know also you have a long relationship with WCAX as well.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So this is sort of your home field.
Yep, my third home away from home.
Your third home away from home. Okay, so obviously, looking at our little open, I would have originally started by asking you, is the drought over now that it's raining? But now I know that that is the wrong question to ask. So you explain to us how we should have a more nuanced understanding of drought.
That's a great opening question, Amy. I think the best answer to that is that there is no one drought. There are droughts, because there are at least 6 types of droughts that we know about. And so when it stops raining, we're in what's called meteorological drought. And as that continues and as the soil starts to dry out, we move into the second type of drought, which is agricultural drought, right? And if the top parts of the soil are dry, that means there's not as much getting into the groundwater supplies. And so that's the third type of drought, which is hydrological drought. And then at some point, we're going to start seeing the impacts of that, whether it's at the store, whether it's how much feed you need to buy, and that takes us into socioeconomic types of drought.
Right, okay, so drought's plural.
That's right.
When we're talking about drought, we should untrain ourselves to say drought. And you know what was interesting is that when I was doing some research for this, I even spent some time looking at drought maps of California. That something that struck me was on all of those maps, they don't go into that level of detail. They just talk about dry, areas of how the severity of drought. So, I mean, why is it that when we talk about drought, like even in the information you might find online, do you think, that we tend to only talk about it in terms of meteorological drought, rainfall?
And that's another one of those questions that if you unpack it, part of the answer has to do with where you are and where you live. And so if you're in a more arid climate like San Diego, where you've got, like winter rain, summer drought, then that sort of like colors how you talk about drought. But in a more humid environment like we are here in the Northeast and in Vermont, where you've got multiple seasons, multiple ways that you get precipitation and those types of things, then you really have to look at what's going on with if it's raining or if it's snowing and your lawn's drying out and all of that. So the nuances in arid climates versus humid climates and the sort of thinking and cultural lexicon of what we know and understand as droughts.
Okay, so different depending upon where you are in the country.
Correct.
Right, so different understandings too. We develop kind of our different understandings of drought. So help us understand the way that the recent droughts, plural, have been impacting Vermont.
So one of the things that's really interesting about this 2024-2025 set of droughts is the time scale, but also the fact that we went into a flash drought, which is very quick onset, and then it just ramped up and intensified quickly in the July-August time frame. And so that is one piece of the puzzle, but at the same time, our groundwater supplies or wells were actually dry since last year. So we also have that longer term perspective. And so it's kind of interesting to see both short term and long term going on at the same time.
Yeah, I had never understood this idea of the flash droughts before. And that is temperature driven? Like what sets the conditions for a flash drought?
So flash drought is one of those droughts that we really started to understand a few years ago. And a lot of it is, yes, lack of precipitation, lack of rainfall, but temperature is huge in there. And so high temperatures, lots of evapotranspiration taking place, lots of drying out really quickly. And I think that's what makes it so different from the ones that, you know, we may a little bit more used to seeing or hearing or understanding it take months to develop. This one can be on the order of weeks.
Well, that's almost terrifying.
Absolutely.
The idea that it can happen so quickly. Oh, interesting. Okay. Well, and tomorrow, so we're going to air these back to back. So tomorrow we're going to have a show on with Sean Lucas and Heather Darby, agronomists with UVM Extension, and they're going to talk about the impact of the drought on farmers, feed, winter conditions, et cetera. I know that you said some things about farmers being themselves kind of natural climatologists.
So I do a branch of climatology that's called historical climatology, which is to look back in time at diaries that farmers used to carry around in their back pocket in the 1700s and 1800s, and then use that to kind of pull out what the nuggets are. And that's when I realized that farmers are the absolute best climatologists, because they have that long-term perspective of what's going on, not just on their farm or with whatever crop they're growing or whatever animals they are stewarding, but also from year to year. Like, should I change this up? Should I plant this instead? Should I do this with this field? Should I let this one lay fallow? And that long-term perspective is exactly what climatologists do, looking at that long piece.
And yet at the same time, for farmers, the weirding of weather, maybe we can say, in the last few years has really proven to be very challenging, because maybe some of the things that they have known about weather, their ability to anticipate, seem like now that's changing. What do you think?
I think it's one of those, again, nuances where you still know a lot from history, a lot from walking on the land, but at the same time, because events are changing and the characteristics of events are changing, that's where the being nimble and flexible comes in, so that you can graft, if you will, this new information, these new changes with some of the older pieces that you already know. So we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, but how do you continue doing what you're doing, which is to be nimble and flexible and use the most current information.
Right, and farmers are experts at being nimble and flexible, but they certainly, it's going to be a great conversation tomorrow with Heather and Sean about how how they are responding to the strange conditions they've had to deal with. So we've talked about this more nuanced picture of climate and weather, understanding them. Is that what it's like to be the state climatologist? Is it all nuance? What do you do?
What do I do? How much time do we have?
I'm so curious about this. I did not actually, truthfully, I did not know that there was such a thing as a state climatologist, which makes me feel now very ignorant. So I would love to know very much what you do.
So a state climatologist is actually federally credentialed to provide information, outreach, research, interpretations, data, you name it, to all of the people within their state and beyond. And so, having been a state climatologist for 29 years, which is my absolute privilege, I actually think I've developed a listening skill set, because I need to hear what the question is. I need to know where you are coming from before I can even start to have a conversation, because it's all about the dialogue, and it's all about my being able to help you, having understood what it is you're asking, what it is you need. And so whether you're 3 years old or 93 years old, whether you're in the state legislature or whether state agency, whether you need some information from the Shaw's parking lot down the road, it's everything for everybody in all sectors, and doing it with the top-notch data.
Do people ever get you in the Shaw's parking lot and ask you questions about the weather?
Not yet, but that's because my face is not on the side of a bus.
It's because, well, after this show, you can go ahead and find her in the Shaw's parking lot and ask her all of your questions. Well, I know that actually this idea of dialogue and conversation, that's always been very important to you, and that's why you have been a real proponent of climate literacy. The ability to have these types of more informed conversations. Tell me about some of the work you've been doing to help promote climate literacy.
So climate literacy for me is everything and everywhere. And I mean, I use the show as example because we're like literally down the road from that, but it's always a question of what do you need for a day-to-day decision, for a town council meeting, for a select board, what it is you need for the class project that you're working on, what it is you need to do something in your garden. Any of those questions, I try to answer to the best of my ability. And so being climate literate means that you can actually acquire the information that you need to do the decision making that you have to do in the most informed way. And keeping abreast of all the latest advances is one way of doing that.
And I know that you really do want people to have this less A equals B type relationship with understanding climate. Like I think when we spoke, you said you had just said a paper for your students, and you said that the thing they could not write is this is happening because of climate change.
Right, because that's not nuanced, right? And I think the nuance that I'm hopefully training them to develop is that science is iterative. We learn more every single day. We graft that to the knowledge we already have, but at the same time, as we do more and more attribution, that's a science of actually seeing how much was attributable to climate change. We need both the data, but we also need to understand that the characteristics of events are changing, and so we cannot rely completely on past numbers and past data to actually say how much of a percentage was attributable or due to climate change. And so the nuance comes in when you explain that, you use nuanced language like it is likely that, this is indicative of the signal that we expect, those types of things.
Yeah. Well, I see if we can get this in, because I was very curious because Jamaica just had Hurricane Melissa. And there was an interesting story that came out about the modeling. There was some modeling that was done very quickly by the Imperial College of London, where then they said it was 4 times more likely than climate change. So how should we interpret stories like that?
I think it has to do with, again, being climate literate, so that you can tease out the source of the information and you can tease out how it was written. And when people or scientists who are doing that as part of their career make statements like that, it's because they've done a lot of the background work and a lot of the background modeling.
Yes.
Right.
Well, and so maybe that's something we look for. We look for words like the attribution, where it's coming from, things like modeling, not just making big proclamations.
Right.
Right.
Nuance.
Okay, there's our answer to how do we talk about the drought, always with nuance. Dr. Dupigny-Giroux, thank you so much for joining me. I really enjoyed this conversation today. I could go on for a lot longer. As always, Vermont, thank you for learning and exploring with me today. And thanks to the team that makes Across the Fence possible. I'm Amy Finley. This is Across the Fence. Come back and let's learn and explore again tomorrow.